I guess that's it. Right. Show coming up in a few minutes, folks. Top of the hour. If you're watching the archive, fast forward a few minutes, about 3.5 minutes, and enjoy the show. And if you're here live, hey, please get involved. Want your questions and all the rest of it, you can call in. I'll explain on the show. All right. Let's do that thing. One, two, da-de-da, da. Ooh. Oh, seems to be working. Hello? Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we'll be right with you. Hold on. Daily Brexit, live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Daily Brexit, coming up shortly.
Live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Daily Brexit, yes, coming up soon.
Daily Brexit.
Hi, Ollie.
Hey, George. Pipe it down, mate. One, two, da-de-da, da. Ooh. Won't be long, mate. Seems to be working. Hello? Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we'll be right with you. Hold on. Daily Brexit, live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Daily Brexit, coming up shortly.
Live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Daily Brexit, yes, coming up soon.
Daily Brexit. One, two, da-de-da, da. Ooh. Oh, seems to be working. Hello? Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we'll be right with you. Hold on. Daily Brexit, live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Daily Brexit, coming up shortly.
Live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Live at 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Daily Brexit, yes, coming up soon.
Daily Brexit. Hey, folks. And welcome to the Daily Brexit. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination, and exposing plutocracy. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for turning up. And today's show, diminishing values. The West is in an almighty pickle. Our leaders untrustworthy. Our elders considered an inconvenient irrelevance, our majority brainwashed, and the media corrupted to the point of farce. Is it any wonder we see such effective divide rule? I got concerned citizens George Hellis from the UK and Dennis Spain from the US comparing notes here with me, and considering what is required to rebuild those most basic tenets of civilization, common decency, and mutual respect. You can join us too, please do. Questions, suggestions, corrections, addendums, we've got live comments on the show on the Facebook post. Or you can just call in. Find me on Skype, Olly Connelly, one word, and call. Fond memories of what might happen in the EU Parliament. No, I'm joking. All right, okay. Let's have a roll call. George Hellis, are you there, sir?
I think I probably am.
God bless you, mate. I think you are. Dennis Spain, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wow, fantastic. I'll tell you what, we've got a pretty international show covering the West. We're going to look at comparing our situations, which some of us would argue are derived from very much the same problematic people in charge. And that's why I chose to get these two guys on, because I respect both of them, the kind of stuff that they post, the learning and sharing on Facebook. And I wanted to try and cover this from both sides of the Atlantic as much as possible. The Western perspective, if you like, and what's going wrong with our society and what we might do to improve it. And Dennis, I understand you're in Hawaii, yeah?
Yes, I am. I came here about 30 years ago. I ran out of money, and I got stuck here, thankfully.
You sound like a hippie. Isn't it a problem? All these, don't you get fed up of Barack Obama, chipping in to Hawaii, and it must be a nightmare when he turns up with his retinue.
Well, I voted for Obama the first time around. And then the second time I became quite interested in Ron Paul, because he seemed like the most rational statesman on the planet.
He seemed like... Now, hold on, whoa. Dennis, before we go any further, because we're going to be covering a lot of ground here, can you get a bit closer to your microphone, please? And as for you, George, I don't know what you're doing. I think you're scratching or something. I don't know what you're doing.
I'm not doing anything. I had the mic turned off because I'm a nice person.
Oh, you are a nice... Okay, it's packets. It's a packet problem. All right, okay, we're just going to have to put up with that.
I don't think we're here to discuss my packet.
Okay,
Nothing is off the table.
And nothing's off the table. All right, okay. First of all, I think we can largely see the problem. But I wonder if the youth can, because they know no different. And that, to me, is the biggest worry of all, because at least us old-timers, at least we have a frame of reference which precedes this modern chaos that we've seen since 9/11, really, albeit it was been leading up to it for forever and a day, actually. But I think there are a lot of folks, for the benefit of the younger folks, hopefully they're going to watch this show, gentlemen. Do we have a problem, or have my specs merely become rose-tinted? George?
I think we have a huge problem. But okay, first of all, let's get this out of the way.
Go on.
I'm white, I'm male, I'm over 40, so I'm probably one of the most hated people in the world at the moment. So let's just get that out of the way. I think we have a huge problem. Society is changing very, very much, and it's changing for no good reason. My life is being affected. I can't live my life the way I want to live it in many, many respects anymore. I have to be careful what I say, and I don't even have to say anything horrendous. I can't eat what I want to eat because nobody will tell me what I'm eating. Children now and in government institutions in the UK, they don't serve pork anymore. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's getting
Hold on a sec. Whoa. Just the pork reference. I mean, yeah. It seems to me that we're basically shelving our culture for a migrant culture to a large extent. And to an extent, that's kind of understandable that if you're going to have a migrant population, then you're going to do that. But
no, it's not.
It's just gone way too far, hasn't it? It's almost as though we're taught to have respect for other cultures, but where's the self-respect?
Well, it's gone much, much too far. I have no objection. The only issue I have with anybody being in this country who was not British is that they're legally here. If they're legally here, that's fine. I have no issue with it. However, why should my life and the small things in my life change because other people don't like it? You know, they can change their lives. You know, if I were a Muslim and I had a problem with the food in the school, I would send my children to school with packed lunches so they didn't eat anything. I wouldn't demand that everybody else.
George, oh blimey, I cut George off. I'm a fool. I do apologise. I meant to cut you off, Dennis, and I'm going to, and I will call you straight back because your line is so scratchy. George, well done. Yeah, I've just cut Dennis off, and I'll reconnect with him because his line, I think it's his line, is so scratchy. And so hopefully now we've got somebody calling in. I'll add him. It's Christopher Baxter. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, Mr. Baxter.
Go on. Good evening, Squire. Good evening.
Chris,
how are
you? You called in. Do you have a question
George.
for our esteemed guest, sir?
Hello, George. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm calling in because I think we have an awful lot to say tonight.
Yeah, so do I. I'm afraid we do. George, oh, blimey. This is a terrible line, isn't it? Okay. Dennis, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. You're very clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're very clear now. Thank you.
Am I very clear?
You are now. Blimey. George?
Well, hello. I'm still here.
Okay, there's no scratchiness on the line, so hopefully it's a bit better for you to listen to. Right. Dennis, how do you see the kind of the problems that we're facing in the UK and those in the United States? I mean, for example, what happened this week or over the weekend, I guess it was, in Charlottesville was obviously appalling. But it seems to me that by attacking, what are they calling them, white supremacists, or on the other side of it, they're calling them Islamists, or basically extreme ideologies of whatever ilk. It seems to me that we're going for these folks, we're targeting them, but we're not targeting the underlying problem that is fanning the flames, providing oxygen. And largely, I say the blame lies with the mainstream media. Dennis, what do you think of all that? And what do you see about the correlation between the problems that we have across the West, in the US and the UK, for example?
I think we're in the throes of cultural Marxism. And the universities invested with a Marxist viewpoint, especially, of course, in the social spectrum.
Dennis, I really want us to be able to hear you because I know you've got a lot to say. Could you please get a bit closer to your microphone? Sorry to lag, mate.
I'm on my computer here. I actually don't know where my microphone is.
You do sound better. You probably are in a strange-looking position at the moment.
I'll just bring the monitor directly to my face here.
Okay, that is better. I'm sorry, you're probably kissing the screen. Yeah, okay, carry on. Sorry, cultural Marxism.
Yeah, it's a philosophy that is where everything is. It's a philosophy in which there's a belief in complete egalitarianism, and that's false. You know, there's a great deal of differences in people and in cultures, and trying to enforce a similarity when there doesn't exist one backfires. And you were talking about Charlottesville a few minutes ago.
Yes.
And there's a small fringe minority of white nationalists or supremacists, but this is caught, by confronting them in the manner in which the media does, and it's a very biased media, in my opinion, It's always
Yes.
promoting the cultural Marxist values. But by building this up, all you do is just you throw fuel on the fire. The truth, unfortunately, given the human condition, always seems to be in the no man's land between two warring camps. And people who want to live with the truth have to live with ambiguity sometimes, and more often than not. And people aren't willing to do that. They want to have one particular point of view or another point of view, and they want to impose that point of view on everyone else. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all.
Chris, what do you think of that?
I don't know about Dennis, but do we have a correlation viewing all politicians who have complained the characters failing a bad habit of the poor for at least the past 50 years? Does he have the same philosophy in America as we do here? In the government's view, the poor are shiftless, irresponsible and prone to addiction. They have too many children and fail to get married. So if they suffer from grievous material deprivation, if they run out of money between paychecks, if they do not always have food on their tables, do we then agree with the Conservatives' ideology that poor therefore have no one to blame but themselves?
No, I don't believe that at all, actually. I think that we're let me backtrack here. I like to strike at the root for better or worse. And in my opinion, the root is actually the nature of our monetary system. We have a completely bogus and false system in which currency is created by a financial elite simply via signatures, our signatures or the signatures of parties on promissory notes. So really, from my point of view,
Fiat currency.
We are living in a neo-feudalism. This is the nature of our money is so corrupt, it's corrupted all of the professions. It's corrupted.
Yeah, but I think we need to get the terminology correct, don't we?
Okay.
The term social deprivation is a slightly ambiguous and lack of a concrete definition. There are several important aspects that are consistently found within reach on the subject. With social deprivation, one may have limited access to the social world due to factors such as low socio-economic status of poor education. The social deprived may experience a deprivation of basic capabilities due to the lack of freedom rather than merely low income. The lack of freedoms may include reduced opportunities, political voice, or dignity in themselves. I think people have to have a little bit of respect. What do you think?
We do seem to have lost a lot of dignity, George. I mean, what do you think about that? It seems to me that the youth of today, when I look at, for example, the pictures of the kids in the streets, sloshed out of their brains after happy hour, and it's the middle of winter, and the girls are wearing short skirts and bugger all else.
And
Where's the dignity, yeah?
Well, let's be fair. I think the youth have always been a bit like that.
Yeah, true. I was actually.
You know, I've spent, when I was young, I spent many a long hour laying down in the street thinking, how am I going to get home? And I think we all did. So, you know, let's not go there. But I
heard it here. Yeah.
Nowadays, and I've been saying this for quite a while, but nobody seems to get it, is that the young people now do not seem to understand that every action has a consequence. They think they can do whatever they want and there will be no consequence.
Yes, yeah.
Why is that?
Problem. Because that's what they've been taught.
Is that this kind of sense of entitlement type thing that we hear about?
Yeah, they've been taught that for ages. It started, I mean, you know, years and years ago, it started on children's television. You had, when the A-Team started, you had guys crashing helicopters into cliffs. The helicopter would burst into flames and they'd get up and walk away. You know,
but
so
do you not?
You know, you're showing this to really young children.
Yeah.
You look at the cartoons; they're really, really sexualized.
Yeah, they are. You look at the pop videos. The pop videos are practically satanic. You know, all of this kind of stuff, and you know, all of that. I mean, it's just. Sorry, you guys couldn't see what I did, but these kind of hand signals, which are basically satanic signs, or Illuminati type.
Let's not go down that way.
Well,
I tell you what, I was
who is
interested in
controlling
this.
this? Why has there been? I mean, we've heard about this thing called MK Ultra, which basically gives Hollywood an agenda. We have heard about that. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but it's all over the web. You can look up MK Ultra, but who is behind? Well, MK Ultra is a CIA department. So who is controlling the CIA? Well, the CIA was set up under Operation Paperclip. It was actually set up by former Nazis, along with NASA, with their rocket scientists. That's the absolute God's honest truth.
Mr. Soros in charge now.
Well, I don't know, but we don't have the true history that we have in terms of our media, and the kind of history that we're told about is not, strictly speaking, one and the same. I mean, we know we've had press barons for time immemorial and what have you, but it seems to have gone beyond that now.
Well,
I don't know.
What's happening now
Go on.
is that our history, and you can see it in the US, our history, the bits that, and I believe it's the left, tell me if I'm wrong, want to wipe out certain parts of our history. Look at the nonsense about the Confederate side, ripping down statues, Confederate flag band. What is that about? How stupid is that? It's
but on the other hand,
American
those statues do upset some people. But then again, I mean, you know what?
Hold on, Ollie. Hold on.
Well, really,
I respect everybody's right to be upset and to be offended. Everybody can be offended. I get offended by lots of things.
I get offended by having to go to bed.
If you put something in your house, or you put something outside your house, and it offends me, does that give me the right to demolish your house?
No.
I would argue not. It kind of depends what it is, but unless it's a time bomb or something, probably not.
What does our American friend think of that?
Dennis?
About your history?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know. I agree. I keep coming back to this. My main theme, which is that about 8,000 people, let's say, control the allocation of resources on the planet, and they control the flow of information. And this is accomplished through a banking and a monetary system which is based on a false debt. And I don't think people really can appreciate the extent to which we are really existing under a neo-feudalism, and the control of information, the control of money, the allocation of the resources is controlled by such a very few number of people, and it's done through a mechanism of credit creation based on debt. And
some of us might have started talking about. Some of us, Dennis, might have started talking about the failings of modern education and the breakup of the nuclear family and. This kind of thing. You went straight for the nub of the issue. You went straight for the nub of the issue, Dennis. That is actually an underlying issue, is it not? The fact that actually we're all debt slaves, and therefore
it's not a valid debt, Ollie. It's not a valid debt. When if you can talk to 1,000 people on the street, and I guarantee you that 999 of them, through no fault of their own, maybe, or maybe because out of laziness, don't understand the exact mechanism by which currency is presently created in the modern world.
I agree with that. That nobody has a clue about
nothing but serfs in a neo-feudalism.
Fractional deposit banking and all that. But, okay, but the average, I mean, that was the case when we were young men as well. That was the case when we were kids. And yet, in my generation, I don't remember there being, and again, I come back to, am I looking through rose-tinted spectacles here? It seems to me that society is in a far more precarious state than ever it was. And so could it
it's
be
in a
that,
very precarious state.
Could it be that more people are waking up because of the corruption that underlines our way of life, such as fiat currency, for example, this global financial Ponzi scheme that relies on debt to survive, relies on problems in places like Greece to survive, which is kind of ironic because it could finish it off too. But people, maybe are they waking up and have they lost so much respect? Have they got so few role models? I mean, gee, what is Gary Lineker a role model? I don't know. I mean, or Ronaldo with his hotel in Madeira. I mean, are the lovely statue? Are we losing? Have we somehow become so dumbed down? But we see that there are these problems. We sense there are these problems, and therefore respect has just been lost.
We have become dumbed down. You know,
yes, we have.
I just don't believe what I'm seeing. I don't believe what I hear. You know, I mean, okay, let's look at that horrible thing that happened the other day in America. Okay, let's just take a quick look at that. You've got white nationalists, apparently, yeah, and you've got Antifa. Now, everywhere I've ever seen Antifa, there's trouble.
The anti-fascists.
Yeah.
Who look to me pretty fascist, I have to say, in the way that they go about their anti-fascism.
Why are they wearing masks?
Here is where I see the problem. Here is where I see the problem. We now have a situation where we have people like Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Every life matters unless you're white, because white lives don't matter. Now, when that is being broadcast
more prominent
everywhere,
every day, isn't it?
And being
now that whole thing surely is just pure racism, George. BLM.
No.
Sorry, go on.
Let me finish this.
Okay, for one minority, not the other.
Let me finish my point.
Go on, George. Sorry.
We have people saying that white babies shouldn't be allowed to be born, that white men should be killed, that, you know, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Now, when that is being allowed and nobody is doing anything about it or saying anything about it or arresting these people because they should be arrested because it is racism. When that's happening, how can we be surprised when people who are white gather together and try and do something about it?
So it's cause and effect.
Absolutely. Of course it is. Yeah. I mean, you know, when you hear those statements...
Which is what you said at the beginning of... Before I interrupted you, sir.
Yeah.
We actually are in a situation now where it's got to the stage that you have a major broadcaster like CNN on the day of the president's inauguration running stories about his assassination. I don't know what that is. If it is not incitement to violence, if it is not hate speech, I don't know what that is.
Well, you see, Ollie, you have to remember that these countries, the US, and we're democracies, okay? We vote for what we want. Unfortunately...
This is in theory.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, the problem with democracy is that the idiots who vote keep voting for the wrong thing. Because all political leaders, I don't care who that... Well, actually, I don't think Trump would, to be honest. But every political leader that I've ever known in anywhere in the world would love to be a dictator. The only difference between the ones in democracies and the ones who are dictators is the dictators had the balls to go and do it, and our lot are too cowardly to do it. But if they thought they could get away with it, this would be a dictatorship, believe me. Because power is what they want.
You know, I'm just going to read a story. Before we continue, I'm just going to... Go on, sorry.
They'll do everything they can to overturn it, as we're seeing.
I'm going to come back to Dennis. I just want to show you guys something that I've been looking at. There's a report that the freethoughtproject.com is discussing today. Unite the Right organizer ousted as provocateur, Obama supporter from the Occupy movement. The organizer of the deadly Charlottesville Unite the Right protest has been ousted as a professional provocateur who also organized Occupy Wall Street. Now, I don't know how much truth there is, but I can tell you, I put on my Facebook page the other day, in fact, I linked to a web page where you can go there and you can organize your mass rally, and then they just get bussed in. We're at the stage now where you can rent a mob. You can literally rent a mob.
Well, it was suggested that Soros had actually done that when
That's right.
President Trump got.
That's right. And all those riots that were going on in Oregon and all over the states, those kids were being bussed in. And indeed, this Charlottesville thing, Dennis, you tell me what you think about this. This Charlottesville thing, apparently, according to the cops, or so I read, because it is so hard to know what to believe. According to the cops, most of the folks by far that were arrested had out-of-state IDs. So they're not even from Charlottesville or that area. They probably didn't even know anything about that statue. It's just, Dennis, how much of what we're seeing is legitimate frustration on whatever side, and how much of it do you estimate, reading between the lines, is provoked by third-party sources, malfeasant sources?
Well, I think that the history of the last 150 years has demonstrated that the left is more to be feared than the right, if we have to make these distinctions. And I read also that as much as 70% of the protesters in the Antifa movement were paid or bussed in from out of state, outside of Charlottesville,
generally migrants.
And this is very concerning to most. I'll call it flyover America, because we see values or archetypes being destroyed, and we see such hypocrisy on the left. Really, people must have concluded that because I on my Facebook postings, I rant and rave about the left, that I think the right is that much better. But the left is just so full of hypocrisy. In Seattle, for example, there's a statue of Vladimir Lenin. Now, if a bunch of white guys went to Seattle and tore down that statue, it would be world news within 10 seconds. You see,
yes, it would.
There's a definite bias in the media, and once again,
why on earth is there a statue of Lenin anywhere, let alone in the States?
Evidently, there's one in Seattle. I hope my sources were correct. I read
Seattle,
but it's like Seattle, Washington. It's like you can imagine the furor that would arise if guys in Nazi helmets, white guys in Nazi helmets, went to Seattle and tore down that statue. And yet, these Antifa youngsters, and really, they're very immature and inexperienced in life. All they've been fed is the propaganda from the social studies departments of major U.S. universities.
Well, I think a lot of that as well is what I was talking about. They don't believe. When they get arrested, they can't believe they've been arrested. They can't believe that hitting somebody with a baseball bat because you disagree with them is something you should be arrested for, because they don't understand there is a consequence to what you do, which is the way they've been brought up. But you have to. It's just getting so strange now. I'm just coming off Charlottesville for a little while. I had an email today. You're going to love this. From a university, I can't remember which one, it doesn't matter, a British university.
I
and they're doing, you're going to love this, they're doing a study on the housing needs of LG, I don't know how many letters it's got now, that's probably not big, but I don't really care. If you're gay or whatever you are, I don't have an issue with it.
Good for you. Be happy.
They have, or they're starting to do, a study on the housing needs of gay, lesbian and transgender people. Now,
this is why I often...
Just one cotton-picking minute, why are their housing needs different from anybody else's?
There aren't.
They need a roof over their head, somewhere safe to be, and warmth. The same as anybody else needs for their house.
Who's paying for this study?
It's a university, a British university.
Right.
This
So
is
in other
the-
words,
this
probably us.
This is why I often begin my postings on Facebook with the simple statement that neoliberalism is a thinking disease. And this is what we're really dealing with. It's a thinking disease. And I maintain it's part of a larger background of cultural Marxist programming, which attempts to destroy, through critical theory, the archetypes that have arisen in societies over the millennia. And it's not going to work ultimately, but it's going to result in a great deal of chaos, and there's going to be a tremendous backlash, just like we've seen throughout history. And this is what I fear most. You know, when I was, before 2001, I was actually, I'm not an unintelligent man, I'm not an uneducated man, but before 2001, I have to say I was completely unaware of economics and politics. I just kind of accepted what was handed to me in my educational studies and through the newspapers and media. To say I was completely unaware of economics.
Sorry, carry on. Carry on.
But,
that was my fault.
Watching the Twin Towers fall down, I just stood there in front of my TV set, and I realized that I was full of shit. I knew nothing. There were actors far above me who were pulling the strings, and so in the interview.
This is something we need to be honest about, isn't it? Chris, maybe you can give us your... Let me just give a few comments here. Yeah, just to say, Julie Bates, is this a new channel? Julie Bates shared. Thank you, Julie Bates. God bless you. Matthew Allwood, hi all. It's history and that's it, he says. Steve Russell, hello, mate. Hey, I hope you're coming on Thursday, by the way. I'll call you about that. Byron Darcy shared. Thanks, Byron. I appreciate that. Steve Russell, I would agree with you. They have the wrong role models. I think an element of it is the helicopter parents. And Matthew Atwood is saying they are sheep. And Chris, my question to you is, off the back of what Dennis was saying, it makes a lot of sense to me that when I was a student, I was actually fairly political as students go, I suppose. I was an anarchist, I was a punk, I was anti-establishment and all that. I had green hair for a while. It was quite funny actually, because my great aunt once said, "Oh, Oliver, he can't upset anybody when he puts on his punk gear." And then I came down in my punk gear, and she, oh my God, she had a shock. Anyway, yeah. So, but the kids do not have a full picture of what life really is about. They haven't yet started paying much tax. They haven't yet had to buy their house, or maybe they're just beginning about it, but they haven't actually started paying their mortgage. They certainly haven't employed anybody. They or created anything, particularly. There are exceptions. I can think of one or two exceptions. I can think about UKIP Stringer, who's a pretty damn bright card. But there are, generally speaking, folks that are very, very inexperienced in terms of politics and the way this world runs. And even adults, most of us, we're not aware ever, probably, how this world really runs. The kind of stuff that Dennis has been talking about, for example, with this global Ponzi scheme. Chris, I agree that, the youth of today, of course, they should have a say, and it is their future. But conversely to that, are they able to really give a contribution that they're going to be satisfied with as they get older and their views mature?
No, because I think, first of all, you've got to remember that these kiddies are really still in their nappies. They've not had any practical instances in life. They don't have any personal pride in feeling the same admiration or approval and respect for yourself as your achievements that you do, and respect adults or childs in general.
And yet we send them off to war.
Humility is feeling as worthy as other people, superior or inferior to them in some way. Many shame-based survivors of childhood neglect and trauma believe they should avoid personal pride, don't deserve it, or are egotistical and selfish, and are sinners. If they feel and express it, they also may have been taught to scorn or pity others who show or express merited personal dignity and pride. You will know today that there was a report brought out on the greenfield disaster. As of yet, I actually have not seen it. But fundamentally,
Grenfell.
I think...
Grenfell.
Yes,
Tower.
Grenfell Towers, yes, sorry. But the fundamentals of the actual cause of the incident actually have not come out yet, and we need to see this before we can really comment on the reason why it burnt down. Okay, we all know that the plates on the front of the house, the block of flats, were faulty.
Yeah.
There are other issues with no water sprinklers, but we need to find out actually how it started. And I think before we make any comments on your theories, we need to listen to or read this report.
Well, if I may interject.
Yes, you may.
One of the reasons that this is all happening is because the best way to undermine democracy is with violence. So the people who don't like democracy are stoking up trouble.
Yeah, the arrogant people.
Violence on the streets suits their agenda because we've made the wrong decisions. And I have a very serious, probably everybody will disagree with this, but I am so glad that Hillary Clinton did not get into the White House because I firmly believe if she had, hold on, I firmly believe that if she had got in, we would be heading to war now. Because,
with Russia.
Well, it doesn't matter with who, because that's not why a war is going to happen.
The left used to be anti-war. Now it's anti-Confederate statues.
It's anti-arrogant.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The public, the general public, Joe Soap in the street, has now got out of the box. He's started to take an interest. He, she, or it has started to take an interest and are now voting the wrong way. So the best way to put the public back in its box is to have a war, kill a couple of million of them, and then they'll behave themselves again.
I tell you what bothers me, George, and that is all these small little new parties that start up with 100 members are actually subtracting from the volume of voters that can get these people out of office.
Doesn't matter. That's democracy, mate. That
is democracy, but we're going to have 1,000 people with 100 members each, whereby those members could be voting for one of the main parties, other than the two that normally get into power, to actually give a decent contest.
You say that, Chris. You say that, but actually we saw in the last election that, because you could argue that UKIP could go into that category. I know there are arguments against that as well. But what we saw at the last election was that people deserted UKIP, not because they didn't like UKIP necessarily, but because they took the two main parties in what is largely a duopolistic political system at face value. Both of them said, we're going to take you out of Europe. We're both going to do that. And these are the guys that got the lion's share of the vote. The Lib Dems got, relatively bugger all. And UKIP, of course, suffered.
And so the reason being is because let's get one thing straight, Olly, and that is the Labour Party came out with such a fantastic manifesto to help the kiddies with free universities. Who are they going to vote for? They're only going to vote for the Labour Party. Which has subsequently been proven to have been rescinded.
A lot of nonsense. Yeah.
Yes, it was a lot of nonsense. But the youngsters believe these sort of tactics, and it's all wrong. But what I'm saying is that if people voted with their minds instead of their hearts and what Mama used to tell them, we may get somewhere.
Well, it's
all we have to do is to read the manifestos, and if they've been approved and not just dreamt up like the Labour Party's manifesto is normally dreamt up, we might get somewhere.
Well, let's be clear. Young people don't read manifestos.
No, nobody does. Nobody does, to be honest with you.
They live on
I do, but I'm a bit sad like that. But carry on.
But they live on sound bites. And if you can create the right sound bites, you will get their votes. Now, Labour did very well. They were very clever. They understood. They understood that soundbite would get them votes, and they used it and used it and used it.
Yeah, the Liberal Democrats went through the same process.
That's fair enough. They got a lot of votes. Luckily, they didn't get in because, these kids don't understand that what politicians do is they promise you the earth to get you to vote, and then they abandon you, and then in 5 years' time they'll promise you the earth again, and there'll be a whole new bunch, 5 years worth of all of the 13, 12, 13, 14, 15, they'll all be coming up to voting age, and they'll believe the soundbite again.
Is there a problem? How big a problem is there in our schools?
A huge problem in our schools. You know, I mean, if you look at universities, most university lecturers are left-wing.
Certainly are. I'll tell you one instance. Elizabeth phoned me the other night, Olly.
Yeah.
Told me she fights
Elizabeth
like
Higgins.
cat and dog with her son, yes, because he has been lectured to vote Labour within the university he attends. And she fights like cats and dogs with him, because he won't listen to any other thing but the university lecturer.
Because these people are in positions where potentially they, if not role models, they're certainly in positions of distinct influence, as are the parents. But, of course, at that adolescent age, you're not listening to your parents. In fact, you want to go against your parents, probably. And so maybe if you get some trendy college professor, you know, with an open neck shirt and, you know, jeans or whatever, then maybe you're going to look up to them a bit more, particularly if they take you down the pub and give you a pint. I don't know, personally, I have to say, when it comes to politics, I do not like sectarian politics. I do not put any particular party political colours on the line. I am a floating voter, if you like, a tactical voter. I will vote with who I think is the best option at the time, and that can vary. And I certainly will not give my unhindered. I will not support any political party 100% because the leadership can change, everything can change, and I just don't personally think it's sensible. Now, Chris, you're very involved with UKIP. I know that. I guess you cannot really agree with me with that as a result. But does that not make sense? Is not part of the problem that we have and that we see being fed to these kids at university and at school even at a young age that their teachers are so stupid.
Left-wing.
Because
well,
they will pin. They will.
Yeah,
yes, I can. They are stupid. If you're okay, I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm ranting a bit. But is it not the case that the sensible way to approach politics is let's see what the manifesto says and see if we can trust these guys and take it from there?
Yeah, they should be teaching politics without party preference, and I think it's a lesson of history.
That's never going to happen. You have to remember that teaching, and especially when you get into university, is a typical left-wing job. Because it's a job for life. You can never get the sack.
Good pension.
It's good money, good pension. It's a typical left-wing job.
It wasn't.
They know
was it that way? Was it that way 50 years ago?
Yes, it was. I think it was. It was going that way. I'm not sure if it actually was, but it was certainly going that way.
It's gone a lot further that way.
Yeah, it's gone way left.
It's full of people who just know they can't succeed doing anything else.
Dennis, what do you think of that?
It's the cultural Marxist agenda at work.
Is it a cultural Marxist agenda, or is it just an agenda to divide rule as much as possible and keep bringing in the taxes, keep lining them up on the front line as the cannon fodder, and basically, you know, and then what happens when we have automation? What happens then? We're not really necessary, largely.
I don't
it's
think,
almost
from listening to the news today, Olly, there was an article on which actually surprised me, and that was about the Scottish government coming out with this baby boxes that double as cribs.
Baby
Now, are these
boxes
people
that double as cribs.
Double as cribs, yes. So you get this box. If you're a new mother, you go to hospital, have your baby, and the Scottish government now give you a box which costs £160.
You just reminded me of Life of Brian. What are you going to do? Just state it in the box?
Are these governments dictating what new parents must do and not do when they don't need information at £160 a box? When they could have given a leaflet saying, you do this, you do that, and that's it. Do they not think that parents can manage to buy their own boxes or cots or throwovers or blankets?
That's right.
Surely most parents,
May I?
even whether they are 18 and been to university, they should know what a child needs.
You're missing the whole point of that. That's not what it's about. When a woman has had a baby, she's probably at her most vulnerable, and she's probably easier to manipulate because she's so vulnerable.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You know, so whoever's the nicest to her at that moment in time is probably a long way ahead when it comes to voting.
Yeah, but George, you know as well as I do, most kiddies who either got married or single and had babies, before they've had the baby, mummy, grandma, auntie is buying this, that and the other, and they already have a cupboard full of stuff before they get a blooming cheap cardboard box from the government.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is it's being delivered to them when they're at their most vulnerable. It's part of their they're happy because they've had a baby. And
so then do they vote the SNP?
And this is a nice thing being given to them by the SNP. Oh,
yes,
yes, wonderful. Look what they did for me.
So it's a bribe.
What's in the box? What's in it?
I think it's all baby stuff.
Yeah, it's baby stuff.
Okay. Okay.
It's a blanket.
Lovely.
It's a blanket, a mattress.
That sounds like something out of
a couple of ducks to play with.
Sounds like something out of Soviet Russia to me. I don't know.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. A dictatorship. But George said no, it's a bribe.
Of course it's a bribe.
Well, it is a bribe. It's a political bribe to vote for the SNP
exactly
again.
The same as the migrants of this country were bribed by the Labour Department to come into this country, and now they get all the votes.
You know what? I love kids. I chose not to have any for various reasons. Not least what we're seeing on the news every day. Yeah, but I love kids, and kids are the future and all that. But I resent the fact that I have to pay so much out of my tax for other people's kids. Frankly, I do. Yes. I'm sorry.
Well,
Child benefit is ridiculous. Child benefit is incredible. We got Steve Russell. The schools are about 75% left wing. Steve Richards disagrees with Steve Russell and says, my brother works in a school and it's more like 90%. Steve Russell, the problem is that kids go to school, then university, then they become teachers. They have no real life experience. Now, that is an astute comment.
That's a fact. That's probably a fact.
Steve Richards, our local school, we've got kids teaching kids.
Yeah, most of them are, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to influence a person, just think about it. If you want to influence a person, either politically or in any other way about their life, when is the time to do it?
45, I believe.
No, before they're 5. Yeah, it's while they're at school.
Mm-hmm.
They spend a third of their life at school, don't they?
Yes.
I don't know. Now people are living till they're 120. That might be
but
debatable.
during their school, I'm talking about during their school
Their
years.
formative years.
They spend a third of their life in school. Pretty much. I'm sure some do spend more, some spend less. But when you have access to a child or a young teenager who's developing ideas and thoughts, and that's what happens, if you can get them for a third of their life nearly, then you can have a massive, massive influence on the rest of their life. And that's what this is about.
And on the demographic as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what this is about.
And, okay, Dennis, what... Is all this ringing true with you? Do you think that this is basically the same deal stateside?
Well, I I'm having a little. I'm not that familiar with British politics, but
You don't want
I
to
would
be.
just like to say one thing. You know, and I always come back to this theme. If you have a currency that is engineered to lose its purchasing value, you can control the population and you can cause all kinds of class conflict. What is needed is an honest money which people can save and which they can count on, and which actually acquires more purchasing power as time goes on. When that doesn't happen, what you get is constant class conflict.
Are you saying that class is not a character failing or lack of motivation and principled poverty
Well, I'm
from
sure
a shortage of money?
All these things enter into it, but I'm just saying that the only thing I'm saying is that when you have a false money that is engineered to lose its purchasing value, you have people running around on hamster wheels. You have the family being destroyed because two people have to work constantly to keep up.
Yeah, social deprivation.
This is how we are in a neo-feudalism. This is how they keep us under control. This is how they divide us.
I disagree. It's part of how they keep us under control. Look, if you want to control a population, it's very, very easy to control any population. What you do is keep them hungry, keep them poor, keep them frightened.
But how do you keep them poor? By having a currency which constantly loses its purchasing value.
That's part of it. If you get Mr. Average, who's got a mortgage, and you can keep him in a state of play that he's struggling to feed his family, he's struggling to pay his mortgage, he's struggling to do everything.
He doesn't have time to think.
Frightened of losing everything, then you have absolute control over that person.
Yeah, I think we need
do.
Yeah, we need to take into consideration that most private employers offer 0 hours employment. They don't have any sick days. How many will fire people who miss a day of work, even to stay at home with a sick child? A non-functioning car also loses pay when you actually have an accident or you lose your headlight and get stopped by the police. If creditors decide to get nasty, a court summons may be issued, often leading to an arrest warrant. No amount of training of financial literacy can prepare anyone for such existences, or make up an income that is impossibly low to start with in the first place. Instead of treating low-wage mothers as the struggling heroines, they are our political culture still tends to view them as misconstrued and contributed to the cycle of poverty. Why should people be having to go to flipping food banks? It is absolutely silly. When people are going to work,
then strike at the root.
Hard workers, they're paying their 44 years or 45 years NI contributions and then cannot get looked after when they're old. Now, this is balmy. I'm sorry.
It is, absolutely. But
we're not investing, are we? We're not investing.
We are.
We're not.
You
we're
can't
not
invest
really.
When the currency loses its purchasing power every day.
It's not losing its power that much that we can't employ a lot of illegal immigrants at half the price.
We are investing billions.
What, in foreign aid?
No.
in war. In what,
but
George?
We are investing in jobs. We're investing billions in jobs.
We're not. What I was going to say. We're not investing.
Yes, we are. Don't argue with me because I'm right. I know I'm right. How we're investing. How we are investing
George Hellis.
billions in jobs. Would you like to know?
Go on then, George.
Yes.
Okay. We have multinational companies that earn billions every year.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're allowing them to employ people for less than they can live on.
Yep.
And then we're topping up the companies because we're actually paying the money to the people through tax credits. But what's really happening is all of those tax credits are going directly into the profits of these companies. Because I'm sorry, if you can't pay your workers enough to live on, then you don't have a business.
Now, I'm going to just explain to something now, George. I heard only an hour before this show that in Rochdale, the small employer, mainly Pakistani, I'm sorry to say, but it's a fact, gets a subsidy from the Rochdale Council for their rates and rent. they also therefore only employ people on less than 16 hours a week who can then claim benefits as well. Now, tell me, what is flipping wrong in this place?
I told you we were investing in jobs.
We may be investing in jobs. We're not investing in eradicating poverty.
Yeah, but
that's the point I was going to make.
We're not investing at all, gentlemen, because nobody saved anything.
Because nobody's saving anything, you say?
Exactly, because you can't afford to save anything because the purchasing power of the currency unit is constantly engineered to go down.
Yeah, but the interest rate is also terrible, isn't it?
Forget the interest rates. It doesn't matter.
Saving.
The interest rate is actually
nobody can save because money is created when people sign their signatures on promissory notes that don't have backing from real savings. It's created out of nothing.
Well, why would anyone want to save with a minus 1% interest rate?
Of course,
when your pound next year is only worth 80p.
Because they need a pension.
It's not a true interest rate.
The government pension is
Hold on. Whoa. I know I'm guilty too, gentlemen, but one at a time.
You're all right.
Chris, go on.
The pension or the government pension is based on your national insurance contributions. The government's fault is that they have actually spent it elsewhere instead of investing it to pay off the elderly folk when they've paid in their 45-year term. Now, that is where the money is going. It's going to either pay aid to foreign countries, it's paid to migrants coming into the country, it is not paid to the normal person that's working in this country for 40 flipping years, and that is wrong.
Of course it's wrong. Strike at the root.
It's
the
actually
money itself.
It's a breach of trust as well, because these people have put their money into this.
The government to invest it, yes.
That's right. Okay, let's try and change the debate slightly, because one thing that particularly concerns me is we talk about racism, we talk about sex. Well, actually, the media talks about racism and sexism and, I don't know, transism, whatever the latest ism is. But
the latest one is trans species.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
Equal rights. Yeah.
That's
we
right.
We now have people who think they're cats and dogs.
Yeah, that's right. And old men who think they're 6-year-old girls. And I've been reading some interesting things this week, I'll tell you what. But it's hard to know how much of that's made up and how much of it isn't. But I suspect there's some of that going on because people love fads. People love trends. People love fashion. I interviewed Malcolm McLaren once and he told me, fashion is fascism. And you know what? He's right. It is. And these trends are often used for fascist purpose, if you like, or for, if you like, this kind of Marxist type, corralling everybody down an avenue. But what I was going to ask was about ageism, because this to me is something that, particularly at this time, 100 years since the First World War, and a lot of memories there. A lot of us lost people. Probably everybody in the UK, pretty much lost somebody or other. It's pretty important, and we have a media that has basically been the Remainer side of the media, the Europhile media, the BBCs of this world, for example, who are telling us, who are illustrating to us by having a youth debate, but no debate for elderly people who presumably have concerns as well. It's just but it's like, if you're young, you know what, we should reduce the age of voting to 16 or something, kind of. That's the kind of what's being breathed by some of the Nick Cleggs of this world. On the other hand, when it comes to elderly people, your view, aren't you dead yet? I mean, this is, to me, this is a terrible, terrible sickness.
Certainly is. It is a sickness.
How much of that is actually going on, and how much of that is me misconstruing the media?
No, it is going on. This is the whole agenda. Every part of society is being turned against another part of society. That's what's happening. And anybody who can't see that is really not paying attention. You've got blacks against whites, immigrants against British. You've got old against young, young against old. Every single part of society that you can section off is now hated by another part of society for one reason or another. And it's being promoted by the media.
Yes.
You'll get no argument from me.
Dennis?
Well, can I, you know, we were just talking about, and I just want to throw this in, we were talking about young people and what happens when they get a mortgage and they start business and their life takes a different tag.
Yeah.
I remember, this is an old story. I remember many years ago, because I'm a right old codger. I remember I was doing business in London, and one of the companies I was doing business with was Virgin Records when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
First year when Branson started it. And I remember being inside their office and talking to their chief accountant, who was a punk, which was rather disconcerting. But he was a punk, sat there with all his stuff on and his zips and stuff through his nose, and this was their chief accountant. And Richard Branson, two other guys, came downstairs, stuck their head round the door, said hi, because I'd met him lots of times, and went into the next office and tried to get a desk out through the door and couldn't work out how to do it. They couldn't figure out to turn it on its side. So Branson opened the drawers, because it was the drawers that were stopping it coming out, and jumped on them and broke them off and then got it out. Right, now hold on. That's what Branson was like when he was young. Look at him now.
Yes.
He's exactly the opposite.
That's right.
He's in the establishment now. And that's how responsibility and real life changes someone.
But in his case, because I had so much respect for that guy, but he just seems to have become a kind of a Soros type character. I mean, he's hangs out on Necker Island, teaching Barack Obama how to kite surf around the boat people who are trying to get onto his island. But of course they're not, because they're all coming to Europe instead. Branson is telling us to
Olly,
change our lives, and he's sat there.
Olly.
He go on.
You're not getting it, Olly.
No, probably not.
When the day you get as much money and power as Branson, you will do exactly what he's doing.
That's a horrid thought.
Constitution. Yeah,
because that's what you need to do in that position.
In the establishment, yeah.
You don't need to do that.
You do.
Oh, you don't?
No, yeah, but you do when you get there, because
of course
it's expected of you by your peers.
You do.
It's expected of you by your peers.
Mr. Gates has just given away billions of dollars to the charities in America. Now, Dennis would know more about it because he's been on today. Even though he's worth 70 billion, he gave something like 5 or 10 billion away to charities, just for the hell of it.
What kind of charities?
Yeah,
I wouldn't know. Dennis would know more than I would, because it was a brief summary on the news.
Got any views on that,
he gives
Dennis?
money away.
I really don't have views on that.
No worries.
He's the same as the rest
I'll
of
look
them.
it
He
up.
supports what he wants. He supports what he wants.
Of course he does. He's allowed to. He can afford to.
I would do the same. So
I've heard.
if you analyse where he's given the money to, you'll see that all the charities that he's giving it to support what he wants to happen.
You're talking about peer pressure, George, but the vast majority of people, they grow up, they get a job, they do all the stuff that you do as an adult, and they do not turn into some kind of an oligarch. The vast majority of people.
Only because they don't have the money to. Let me tell you that when you click onto the $500 million or pound mark in your bank, free and clear, then you become one. There's no way out of it.
Ooh, well, that's a nasty thought, because that suggests that we need to eradicate ourselves of all the world's billionaires, and that sounds pretty drastic to me.
Just think about it for a second. Just think about it. Your peers are your closest friends and the people around you.
Yeah.
Once you get to that level, you're only mixing with people who are richer than you.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay?
Been there, done that, seen it.
If you want to fit in, you have to fit in. So all of these people, you know, the Soroses of this world, and you know, they all have agendas. They know what they want. They're not happy with the 50 billion they already own. Personally, if I got 5 million, I'd disappear. That'd be enough for me. Yeah, they're not happy with that. They want more. They want more control. You know, I mean, the world is coming to a stage where in 25, 30 years' time, there'll be no shops. We'll have 5 shops. And they'll be in every single town, and you'll buy everything from 5 people.
Yeah. Everything's swallowed up by big business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And every high street is just a series of franchises, which actually it is now. But you're saying no shops at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you want, you know, you've got these big supermarkets. Why not have 5 big supermarkets that will sell everything?
That is a very, very important issue, isn't it? That's a very important point. We should be supporting our local communities, not
let me tell you why we can't.
Go on.
Money.
Well, listen, when you constantly engineer a depreciating currency, the costs of production go up primarily. And that requires centralization of agriculture, of all kinds of different sectors of the economy. That squeezes out the diversity that an honest money would actually create.
Oh, so this is why we need to stay in a single market.
No, I'm for diversity on all levels, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
but as I was saying earlier, the government are already getting rid of the small businesses or keeping them alive with supporting them paying their council taxes.
They have to subsidize because the cost of production keep going up.
Yeah, but the most of the Pakistani shops in Rochdale itself are making a loss and therefore cannot pay their council tax. They can't pay their rates and their rents or their staff, who are now getting benefits because they're working less than 16 hours. Now,
if they're making a loss, why are they still... Go on.
Sorry?
If they're making a loss, why are they still in business?
They're not making a loss because the actual council itself are keeping them going.
The business is making a loss, but they're being subsidised.
Yes.
By us.
Yes.
Okay.
By the taxpayer.
Yeah, we also subsidise big business, though, don't we? I mean, for example, we give BP an enormous amount of money every year. I mean, why? Where is...
The government's excuse for that will be that they're getting a rebate on all their taxes they pay. I suppose that's what one of the reasons. The more that they bring in...
Many more companies than that.
Yeah, we do have a problem, don't we? We do have a problem where businesses can flit about. They can find a nice little tax haven like Jean-Claude Juncker's old place, Luxembourg, where he set up all those tax-lovey haven-type conditions for the likes of eBay, who pay nothing or bugger all in tax, 2% maybe or something like that. But they're operating in the UK. and actually, that's changed with eBay. That's changed with eBay. But a lot of that. But this is a problem, isn't it? We are not holding plutocracy and fascism, actually. You know what? That's what it is. This is, I reckon, Benito Mussolini would recognize what we're seeing as fascism, where these big businesses are able to to tell the governments what they want to do and end up paying bugger all tax. And then on the other side of the scale, we've got small traders who are desperate, and they're too tired to think, let alone to question these kind of issues. That also, there is our government is not really our government at all. No?
No. And let me explain to you one thing. You know that I worked in Budapest, in Hungary. Now, we're talking about 1994, before they joined the EU. You could not start a company unless you are either a resident. You cannot even start a bank account unless you are a resident or a citizen. And therefore, I was explaining to you also previously that in South Africa, you cannot start a business unless you are a South African resident. And the same case goes now when we're dealing with the single market and wanting to have a free, open access to this market business with only 500 million people when there is 7 billion in the world, is that people can go and set up companies in Luxembourg, sell their product to the UK, more or less free of charge. Did I not tell you previously, Ollie, that the BMW, Mercedes, and everybody else were charged 130% tax on all vehicles that entered South Africa?
Good
They
Lord.
then decided, hold on a minute, we can't have this. They then come and put a plant in South Africa and register a company in South Africa, which means that the South Africans would get the taxes.
Blimey.
And the only way we're going to sort the taxes out in this
Good
country
on the
is
South
to say-
Africans for sorting that
Yeah,
out.
is-
Was that
is to
this
say,
Zuma
listen,
bloke that did that?
No, we're talking many years when I was there,
Right.
in 1986s. Now,
De
the
Klerk.
only way we can secure our taxes in this country is to say, okay, you're an American company, and therefore you're going to pay taxes on your coffee machines and your coffee houses and your coffee whatever.
Well, the
Now,
way
I'm
to
talking
do
about
it,
imports.
no, the way to do it is very simple. Either you register your company here
That's
and
right.
pay
You have to.
taxes, or we will tax you on a turnover tax.
This is what Trump is talking about. This is a major
with-
plank
and with
of
the
his
conditions.
manifesto.
If
you don't
conditions.
if you don't want to register your company here and pay tax like Amazon, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You carry on doing business. If we'll tax you 25% on your turnover. So if you turn over $1 billion, we'll take 250 million off you. Thank you.
More like 50% to be better.
Well, it doesn't
Dennis,
matter. I mean,
Dennis,
the point is-
Dennis,
Yeah.
these two are very loud. Yeah.
Sorry,
I want to ask you a bit more
Oh,
about
well.
Trump's policy there, and
Got me
I
on
want to.
overtime.
I want to just find out a little bit more of this left-right political quandary, if you like. And I mean, what Trump is actually saying about business, you would think it would be a Democratic policy, not a Republican policy.
Well, I've lost faith in both parties, actually. I think that he's for 8 years. The people, the right conservatives in this country, allowed Barack Obama his point of view and his attempts, good or bad, to put the country on course. But what I notice is that the left is so intransigent. They're not giving him actually the opportunity to implement
They're
many
bullying
of the
him.
Yes, they are.
They have been hectoring him since all the way through the campaign, and then he becomes the president, and they don't have the decency to give him a chance. I was brought up incorrectly, by the way, to believe that the left looked after people and they gave people, a bit more benefit of the doubt sort of thing, whereas the right was, if you like, more cut and thrust and more aggressive, but more honest. It turns out more honest, because you look at the way the Democrats and all of their kind of media cohorts are treating Trump. Look at the Russian thing. Is there is there a single shred of evidence of any wrongdoing, despite all of this media campaign to try and discredit this presidency?
None that I can discern. And also, it just reveals to me that the left has a problem, number one, with thinking, and number two, with integrity.
well, you only have to look. To be fair, we've all had spats on Facebook with lefties.
I'm sure you have, George.
Yeah, I have. But
Seem to be more arrogant than the rest.
And if you look at what's happening to Trump now,
Yes.
that is exactly the same as what happens to you and me when the lefties start on us.
Yeah.
No different. It's their
True.
ideology. What
But
you
we
do
didn't do this,
is if
did we?
there's- what
When
you do-
Barack Obama gained power, I think that
Yeah.
decent people tended to shut up and gave him the benefit of the doubt and said, get on with it. And by the way, the fact that you're black is great, but who cares? You know what?
Yeah,
who
but the
cares?
left don't-
But it
there
was a
is no
historical thing. It was an incredible historical thing, on the other hand. But I think the right tended to say, get on with it, mate. There's the baton. Good luck.
Well,
And it turned out that he was exactly the same as his predecessor, bloody W, anyway.
Well, the thing is, you're talking about the impossible here. You're talking about left-wingers giving anybody the benefit of the doubt. That does not happen.
No, it doesn't work.
That
It
does
does not work.
What is with that?
You know, I
What
don't know.
is with that?
There's a mindset that I've often, you know, I put it in very graphic terms that the left seems to be so full of themselves that that they cheerfully wave goodbye to their turds when they flush in the morning. You know, and it's like, this is really dangerous. This is a really dangerous mindset. And I maintain throughout history that the left has always been more destructive than the right.
And I think that history proves it. History proves that absolutely.
That's what scares me in this present state, the present state of affairs in my country. There's such division, there's such fundamental division and such intransigence on the part of the left.
Is the truth of this political quandary that if you go far enough to the left or far enough to the right, you end up at the same place? And it is extreme, and it is very ugly and extraordinarily dangerous.
Absolutely.
I mean, Nazis, National Socialism, yeah? For example, communism is socialist, yeah? They're the other side, but they actually meet up at the same place, which is called, God knows how many tens of millions dead in the Second World War, for example. And I think Stalin took out 20 million Russians as well. And God, look at Chairman Mao. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. But I mean, these are the kind of folks that we have. People like Henry Kissinger going off to China all those years ago with Nixon. It turns out that he admires the Chinese model. People like him and Brzezinski are telling us that, you know, they're all writing in their books that very few people bother to read, of course, including me, I have to say. I've seen various quotes, but they're basically praising that model, which doesn't even have a choice, a political choice. And these guys, they're perfectly happy to advise, be it left or right, Republican or Democrat in the United States. They're perfectly happy. They don't seem to care. I'm off on one. It just seems to me a bit confusing. It seems that we have so many false messages. We're taught that socialism is caring, but actually, is it just some bloke deciding that you're never going to vote for me, so I'm going to steal your money and I'm going to give it to that group over there who will vote for me, particularly as I let them into the country, Tony Blair, yeah?
No, it's not.
No?
It's not.
Here's how I describe the difference between the left and the right. The left believes primarily in redistribution, and the right sees the necessity of production. You can't have distribution without production.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But the left, to be fair to them, you know, they have these wonderful ideals. And they are wonderful ideals.
For sure.
You know, but they're never going to work. And the road to the left has been proven so many times. And we have case in hand, Venezuela. What a wonderful socialist republic that is. You know, nobody can eat. People on the streets all the time. And what's their response? Lock them up. Because once the left get control, they'll never give it up.
We've got some more comments. We've got some more comments. So I'll come back to you, Chris. Steve Russell's got a someone once said, politics is a balance between poverty and anarchy. That's a pretty profound thought, Steve. Thanks for that. Yeah. He also says that 16 hours a week is a scandal. And Brian, Mahendranathan. Excuse me, Brian. That's there's a lot of syllables for me to get my head around. He's living in Bali. I'm not sure who he's referring to there. Who's living in Bali? Somebody we've been talking about. And he also says, start to analyze every single world bigger companies so you all will understand. None of them are paying any taxes in nice order. And he also says the current global economy is on the communist side of things. So those are a few thoughts that have come in. What do you guys think about that? Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree. But I have to leave you because I'm 20 minutes late as I am already 7 o'clock. So I'm going to let George answer, and I've got to really rush off. So
God
if
bless you,
don't
Mr. Baxter. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for your time.
See you
Look
later,
forward to
Chris.
Thursday's race. See
Thank
you,
you.
George. Bye, Dennis.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, man.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Okay. We've been looking at the problems, guys. Well, we'll maybe wrap up in 10 minutes or so, but the really big key question is, what do we need to do to turn this around? To try and instill a higher dosage of common decency and mutual respect for ourselves as well as for other people.
Well, the first thing I think we need to do is backtrack on all this rubbish with children. Children need to understand from a very early age that there is a consequence to what they do. And if they behave badly and do things they're not supposed to do, there is a punishment for it. I'm not saying we should beat them or anything, but they have to understand there is a punishment. Okay? Yes. They also have to understand that the world is competitive. And it's no good having the egg and spoon race where everybody wins, and having sports days where everybody wins. They have to understand that what you get out of life is directly measurable with what you put into life. You know, I've had a decent life, and I've had lots of people say to me, "You're really lucky." And what I say to them is, "Do you know what? The harder I work, the luckier I get." We have to instill this into our children.
People make their own luck.
Yeah, but the current children think everything's for nothing. They think they're entitled. They don't realise they have to work for things. You know, I mean, there was I saw something the other day where a university in the States allows people to choose their own grades.
Pardon?
Yeah. They allow them to choose their own grades.
I choose to graduate.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
So because they don't want to upset them, because it might traumatise them if they fail.
Well, you know, this is just deplorable. I mean, surely we should be teaching kids to be individuals and telling them that it doesn't matter if you ain't no good at the egg and spoon race. Who gives a flying stuff?
Absolutely.
There is something. There is something that you've got. Everyone's got a spark, and it's just a question of finding it. Isn't that a better way to bring kids up?
If you take away the competitive nature of school, university, college, all of these things, if you take away the competitive nature of it, then you never find out what those things are. So the kids are in limbo. They haven't got a clue what they do. They haven't got a clue what they're good at.
Does that ring a bell with you, Dennis?
Yes, I agree. One of my jobs is I'm a private tutor in mathematics and the sciences at all ages. So I have firsthand experience with the nature of our present school system. I like Michael Moore's interview of the Finnish school officials. I thought the Finns might be doing it right. And I recommend people look at, that's about the only thing I can recommend viewing regarding Michael Moore, but his interview with the Finnish school officials was very good. The Finnish schools are, they have proper respect for children, but their expectation is of children is a little different than ours in terms of tests and all that. But it turns out it works out for the better for them. Anyway, my point. So I agree with all the comments that have been made, primarily regarding the the nature of our present rearing practices with children. But I think that no progress will really be made, and I hate to be such a one-note Johnny, until more people understand how money and how currency is actually created in the world. Once they come to that realization, they'll throw off the shackles of the moneylenders, the false debt-based monetary system, and they'll create a monetary system that by its nature will be just.
But people have tried to do that and they're dead now.
Yes, that's true. But this is a new age, and the information capabilities that we have presently hopefully will overcome the psychopaths that are controlled.
Every country that I can remember, and there's not that many to be fair, that's decided to go back to the gold standard,
yes,
which is proper currency.
Yes,
you've got to have
asset backed, not fiat. Yeah. Carry on. What about them?
All the leaders of those countries were deposed and are now dead.
Yes,
it's true.
That's right.
You know, I used to be a quite bold bug, but I've expanded my vision a little bit. I think it's quite possible to have a fiat money, but banks must not be allowed to create credit ex nihilo, out of nothing. The lending must only occur from actual previous savings, and the interest rates. Or if you want to, you can even use the Islamic model, which is a good model for banking, an honest model. The interest rates have to be freely set in a true capital market. But you have to make loans only from savings.
Dennis, sorry, can you elaborate on that? This is Sharia banking that you're referring to here, yeah?
Yeah, it's simply that.
How does it work? I've got no idea.
Well, this is my understanding. I hope I'm not misrepresenting it, but it's my understanding that, for example, you can invest in a business, with your previously saved capital, but you forego the possibility of ever getting your principal back in exchange for a percentage of the profits. So if the company goes bankrupt, you lose your investment, but but if it doesn't, you can reap. Instead of interest, you reap a percentage of the profits of that company in perpetuity. That's my understanding. I hope I'm not misrepresenting the Islamic model. But my point is this, and if you have to, it's not easy to understand because we're not really taught about the nature of money. It's something that we simply accept, and we're taught actually false ideas about money in our school system. But the proper mode of banking, the honest mode of banking, is that loans are only made from previous savings. Bankers are not allowed to create credit via signatures on promissory note or by our contracts. In other words, people think that when you sign a mortgage, you're actually borrowing money. The terminology is actually incorrect. You're not borrowing money. The bankers, via that signature on that contract, create the credit. And this is a legal process because the legislatures of the world love this process because they can always go to the bankers to get any amount of money they need for their cockamamie schemes. But you have to have an honest system. And that's why when you don't have that honesty in banking and currency, it corrupts every institution in society. Education, medicine, statecraft, you name it. Media, it's all corrupted by this corrupt money. I see this so strongly. I hope I'm not, my intuition is correct. It's what I believe strongly, though.
We like passionate people on here. We can't learn anything otherwise. Sorry, Steve, carry on.
I think you're right.
Sorry, George.
I think he's absolutely right. Banks should not be able to invent money. If a bank wants to lend you £1 million, it should have that £1 million to lend you.
They should be true intermediaries between entrepreneurs and savers.
But I hate the banks anyway. I've got to be honest. I think we've let them get away with it.
You hate the banks because we haven't had an honest banking system.
Well, no,
I don't blame.
I mean, we've had problems. I don't know what problems you have with your banks over there, but we've had lots of scandals over here with banks mis-selling things forcing people to buy products that they didn't need and shouldn't have been forced to buy. Now,
LIBOR, for crying out loud, where they tried to, mess around with the interest rate.
well,
And these guys got about 6 months jail time, about 3 of them, and all the senior lot.
But you understand that the money they're working with is a debt-based fiction.
No, absolutely. But here's the thing. It's about time. I remember the last banking crisis when everybody was saying the banks are too big to fail. No, they're not. And I personally believe that the next bank that does something like that, that's scandalous, that's a crime, that are ripping off their customers, I believe they should just rescind their banking license on the spot.
I agree with you, but they never will. For the reason you're the one that keeps saying that, George. That won't happen. But that won't happen because unless we have some kind of a revolution. I mean, to change the banking system, we need to basically replace the elitist class or get rid of it. But that's a bloody thing to do, yeah? And after that, it's like Animal Farm, isn't it? Somebody else takes over. Yeah. I don't know. Carry on. Go on, George. What do you think of that?
You're talking like a commie now.
There's a man in Europe, his name is Ronald Bernard, who was he was a high-level banker, and he was so disgusted by the rampant pedophilia in the higher levels of banking circles that he's spilled the beans on that. It would be really good for everyone to listen to his 2-hour lecture on YouTube. His name is Ronald Bernard.
Ronald Bernard.
His new bank is called the Bank of Joy, actually.
Okay. Now, look, George accused me of sounding like a commie. No, I sound like a capitalist because what we lost in 2008, it seemed to me, the funeral we had there was of capitalism. When you start bailing out these too big to fail, you haven't got, that isn't capitalism. I don't know what it is. It's a different kind of ism. It's plutocracy is what it is. It is not, mate. When these banks are found to be misleading people, they should have their license suspended or whatever. They basically should never, ever be allowed to get into that situation. They should know that if ever they do, that's it. You're mustard. That's not common. I just thought I'd defend myself.
No, I know that. But I'm a capitalist, and I believe that banks should be so tightly regulated, and we should not be frightened to take a license off them. And if necessary, we just take the bank into public ownership. Yeah, and everybody loses everything except the deposit.
You mentioned the kids.
I also believe, rightly or wrongly, that we should also be owning all of our utilities.
Yes,
we should own them. I am so miffed that the European Union, and it was partly us, and it was partly the European Union, told us we had to privatise everything, and they did. And who bought it? The French and German governments bought it all.
I thought we were pretty happy to privatise under Thatcher.
But it was also the Europeans were saying we had to privatise.
I didn't know that.
They were. But now we have the French and German government owning most of our power, most of our water.
Which is ridiculous.
I'm sorry.
If God forbid, if there was a war at some stage in the future, well, I mean, we would just wrestle back and say bugger off, wouldn't we? But then they've got all sorts of back doors in the software or whatever. That could be very, very messy. It is against the national interest to have a foreign concern running your water supply, eh?
Yeah. Personally, I think if any government is going to own our utilities and steel and anything else that we need, if things go wrong, it should be our government.
What else can we do to try and instill some values, some shared values?
We have to teach them. We have to teach people what values are. When you're young...
That's not going to happen with the current crop of teachers, though, by the sounds of it, because it's almost as though the left has become a religion unto itself. Some people would say that about the right, and that would be a valid point, possibly. I would certainly say that about the left now. It seems like a religion, and these kids. Well, how can we backtrack on that so that there's more balance in schools, so that children are getting a more balanced upbringing politically?
Well, we have to encourage a more varied intake of teachers. We have to encourage more people from other aspects of life to become teachers. So it's not just the people who can see, hold on a minute, I can stay in school for the rest of my life. I don't need to go and get a job. I just come to school every day, which is, you know, what's happening.
Dennis, you got anything to add to that?
You know, this has been a very wide-ranging conversation.
It has. It tends to be. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if we've. I would like to continue it again sometime if possible. The problems are truly overwhelming in the world, and I think that our modern information flow is so voluminous that we can easily get overwhelmed and get sidetracked and you know, we get ourselves lost on many different paths. I guess that's why I always emphasize that the true change will come when people understand the absolutely important and vital nature of currency and a division of labor economy, and the nature of that currency must be honest. The Romans knew this, but they allowed themselves to debase their currency as well. So if history has anything to teach us, it teaches us that a plutocracy always wants to control the issuance of money. And once they get control of that issuance, everything goes to hell in a culture.
I think you're probably very right there.
Blimey, this is something we're going to be returning to. I've got no doubt about it. And I want to thank you guys very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you
for
inviting.
Thank you, Olly.
George Hellis, Dennis Spain, and Chris Baxter was on too. Thank you guys. We clearly didn't come to, you know, we didn't actually put the world to rights, let's face it. But we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying and keep learning and sharing. On Thursday, I'm punting for guests, yeah? If you know about common law, yeah? Like Magna Carta Article 61, for example, common law, I want to talk about that. I want to find out what that's all about. You've been tuned into the Daily Brexit. I'm Olly Connelly. Thank you very much for watching. Here's to us and bugger plutocracy. It's a bit long, this. A bit long. Yeah, it's a bit long, this. Look, I'll tell you what. I'm just gonna cut this. God bless you. Yeah. See you soon. How do I? Oh dear. How do I stop this? I don't know. How do I stop this damn thing? Useless.